Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can take a seat. You may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, sir. If you would please introduce yourself to the jury and tell them how you're employed.
Deputy Richard Pittman, work for the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office Judicial Process Section.
How long have you been employed with the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office?
January, 28 years.
It'll be 28 years in January?
It'll be 29 years in January.
And you said judicial processing. What does that mean? What do you do in your division?
I'm a deputy sheriff. Anything that comes over from the courthouse that is enforceable and requires a certified law enforcement officer to serve, I would serve them. Writs, replevins, levies, evictions, child custody orders, restraining orders, stuff like that.
And how long have you been serving in that capacity?
7 years.
And in the process of serving an individual, specifically in this case we're going to be talking about an injunction or restraining order, the term you used, do you serve for the entire county or are you broken up in zones? How does that work?
We are oftentimes broken up in zones. There are 3 deputies inside the judicial process section. So the county would be divided 3 ways.
I want to take you back to 2015. That's within the 7 years, so you were doing that same job then, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Specifically August of 2015, did you have an occasion to serve a final injunction for protection on a James Colley at that time?
Yes, I did.
And what date did you serve him that final judgment of injunction?
Monday, August 10th, 2015.
How did you get him served? What is that process like?
The process is it'll come over to the sheriff's office from the courthouse. The clerks there at the civil office will assign it out to us. And we will attempt to contact a lot of times the respondent and make service of the injunction.
Did you attempt to make contact with James Colley Jr. back then to serve it?
Yes, I did.
And how, where, and how did that go out? Where did you go?
If I'm remembering correctly, I called him from the office and told him that I had the final injunction. It permitted him visitation with his children, so he was willing to meet with me. And we arranged an agreed upon location, which was behind the Publix there at Mirabella.
Okay. And, Your Honor, at this time, the state would offer into evidence state's AAA as a certified copy of a final judgment. I believe there's no objection by the defense, and it's a self-authenticated court document.
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, that's when you received the state's exhibit 33.
May I approach, Judge?
You may.
And this has been received into evidence as states 33, but just take a look at that item of evidence and let me know if you recognize that as the final judgment you served on Mr. Colley.
That is correct.
And in that final judgment, and I will direct you to about page 3, there's a section in there about no contact. Are you familiar with these documents?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And what does it state about his no contact that he's allowed to have?
Respondent shall have no contact with the petitioner unless otherwise provided in this section or unless paragraph 13 through 19 below allow for contact connected with temporary payment plan or temporary time sharing with respect to the minor children.
And below that in the paragraph, does it indicate whether he's allowed to go within or is restricted within so many feet of a residence?
It restricts him from being permitted to go within 500 feet of the residence.
And what residence is that?
260 South Bellagio Drive. It also mentions the petitioner's place of employment, City Carway in Jacksonville.
And this is stuff that you would have explained to Mr. Colley as part of your process of serving him?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you, Deputy, a document that has been marked for ID Estates LL. Take a minute and look at that document. Let me know if you recognize it.
This would be a return of service generated by the injunction clerks and forwarded over to the courts to be retained for record of service.
And so this is the paperwork that you ultimately sign that says the date and time and location of which service was made. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you recognize this is a copy of that document that you executed back in 2015?
That's correct.
Your Honor, at this time, move in States LL.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
We received the State's Exhibit 34.
And at the time that you made contact and made service, how were you, and specifically in this case, how did you make sure that you verified the identity of the person that you were serving?
Through Mr. Colley's Florida driver's license.
Okay. So something you would have looked at and confirmed upon meeting him?
That's correct.
Deputy Pittman, the petitioner of that injunction, who is that? If you look at your records.
Amanda Cloninger.
No further questions, Judge.
Any cross-examination, Mr. Sheehan?
Yes, sir. Deputy, are you aware if there was already a temporary injunction in place in that case?
Yes, there was.
There was, okay. Also, what time did you call, if you remember, what time did you call Mr. Colley?
To the best of my recollection, because it's been like probably 3 years ago, probably close to 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock? And at what time did you meet him?
4:40 p.m.
And so about 40 minutes later?
That's correct.
And when Mr. Colley arrived and you went over the injunction and talked to him, what was his demeanor like?
Fine.
Fine?
Yeah.
Okay. And then do you know, you said you met him at the Publix in Mirabella?
That's correct, behind the Publix.
All right. Whose idea was it to meet there?
Probably mine, if I'm not misremembering.
Okay. Do you have any idea what the relationship as far as distance is between the Publix in Mirabella and 260 South Bellagio, which is part of Mirabella?
I do now, yes.
Okay. How far is it?
Quarter of a mile.
Yes, right.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Is Deputy Pittman excused?
He is.
From the defense?
Yes.
Excused. Okay, Deputy Pittman, you are excused. Thank you. State, call your next witness, please.
State would call Detective David Colley.
Detective Colley, good morning. If you'll take the witness stand right here. Remain standing when you get there. Raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Detective, you may be seated. Ms. Dunn, you may apply.
Thank you. If you would, please, Detective, introduce yourself to the jury and let them know how you are employed.
My name is Detective David Colley. I work for the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, do digital forensic examinations,
And how long have you worked for the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office?
19 years.
You just indicated your current duties are forensic examinations. How long have you been doing those duties?
A little over 8 years.
And what does that mean? What is a digital forensic examiner? What are your duties?
We take any piece of evidence that could be from a SD card to a digital video surveillance system, computer, cell phone, anything that has digital evidence on it.
And it's your job to forensically examine those?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
What is your educational background?
High school, some college. I don't know how many digital forensic classes, 30 plus maybe.
Okay. Can you talk about some of the more important courses, some of the larger courses you've taken? Training?
Recently completed the International Association of Computer Investigation Specialists, CFCE course, which is a 7-month-long computer forensic examiner certification examination course, certified in Celebrite, Oxygen Forensics, which are cell phone tools, Axiom, XRY, X-Ways, it's XWAYS, FTK certified examiner, I don't remember from there.
Okay. And all of those tools you just listed after the IASIS certification you mentioned, let me back up. The IASIS, you gave the acronym certification, does that have to do with computer forensics or cell phones or all forensics?
It somewhat touches on all, but primarily it's for computers.
Okay.
It's just a worldwide certification for it.
And all of those other tools you listed, beginning with Celebrite, Oxygen, some of those others, what media are those tools relevant?
Those are all relevant to cell phones primarily.
And some of those tools hold certification courses as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And are you a certified Celebrite examiner?
Yes, ma'am.
Talk about Celebrite and the frequency in which you use Celebrite with cell phones.
Primarily on every cell phone that comes into our agency. I'm thinking we did over 400 phones last year.
I was just about to ask you that, and as it pertains to cell phones, you believe you examined approximately 400 last year?
Not myself,
Okay.
our unit did. I don't know what number of those I did. But we're primarily, in this day and time, everybody's got a smartphone pretty much. A lot of people don't have computers anymore, they're relying on smartphones, so we do a lot. The vast majority of the stuff we do anymore are cell phones.
Okay. Safe to say you've forensically examined hundreds of cell phones?
Probably thousands.
Okay. Over the last
Yes,
year?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you teach any related courses at your agency about digital evidence?
Yes, ma'am. We have a training program for the new hires that we go through and tell them what to do. I'm also an instructor for primarily evidence intake of digital media.
Have you testified in courts in the state of Florida in the area of digital forensics?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Have you testified in this county, St. Johns County, in the area of digital forensics?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Were you asked to examine any digital evidence in this case, state of Florida versus James Colley?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Were you asked to examine several cell phones in this case?
Yes, ma'am, I believe 5.
And do you recall, you said 5 cell phones,
I
correct?
believe so, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And prior to court, did you help and assist in preparing a court presentation for the evidence you located, specifically as to 2 cell phones?
Yes, ma'am.
You got our meeting approach?
You may.
And Detective Crosby, first, I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit GG for identification. You take a minute and flip through here and let me know if you recognize what Exhibit GG is.
It appears to be some of the artifacts that were recovered from Amanda Colley and James Colley's cell phone,
Okay?
and as well as some pictures that were recovered from the phone.
Okay. So you use the word artifacts, photos. The information in Exhibit GG is essentially data of various types that you extracted from those 2 cell phones. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay. And in addition to that, the presentation of that data, do you recognize, I'm going to show you State's FF1, and ask if you recognize a disk related to that presentation.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay, did you have an opportunity to review that disk prior to court, the presentation, and verify it with the data that was extracted from those phones?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay, and all the information in the PowerPoint presentation is true and accurate as it compares to the data from these phones?
Correct.
And then FF2, an opportunity to look at that, just take a look through that.
It appears to be what is on, I believe you said was FF1.
The PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, ma'am. The printed out version of it.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Here at this time, the state would first offer FF1 and FF2.
FF1 and FF2, any objection?
No objection.
That objection that would receive the State's Exhibit 35.
And next offer states GG.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
That objection has to be received the State's Exhibit 36.
May I approach and leave the items of evidence with the witness? Okay. I'll just leave these here, detectives, if you need to use them throughout your testimony.
Thank you.
Let us know.
Detective, did you conduct an examination on Amanda Colley's cell phone in this case?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Do you recall the date in which you did that?
We have a report, but I think it's September 25th,
Of what year?
2015.
Okay. And do you recall what item of evidence that was that had been entered into evidence?
Number 11, item number 11.
And what tool did you use to conduct that examination?
Celebrate.
Was that the sole tool you used on that phone?
Yes, ma'am. We may have had another tool at the time, but it was a little outdated, so we didn't really use it.
Okay. Celebrate. Will you explain to the jurors so they understand what we're talking about when we say you utilized a tool? What are you actually doing? Explain that process of extracting data from the phone.
Okay. So a cell phone is one of the more unique animals in digital forensics because it has to be powered on. We have to power the device on and communicate with the device through various tools. In this case, it was Celebrite. You plug the cell phone into a computer, a forensically sound computer. They kind of do a handshake. They agree to talk to each other, and it will then extract the data from the phone.
And when you say extract the data at that level right there, are you telling the software to extract? Give me everything in the phone? Are you picking and choosing? What are you doing?
Well, there's different levels of what you can get. Apple does not play well with us too much anymore, so we can only get two different levels from extractions. One's called a file system extraction. The other is called a logical extraction. A file system extraction is what you, as an end user, would not be able to see on a phone necessarily. It'll recover deleted information at times, where a logical extraction would be, I hand you my phone and say, here's the passcode. Everything that you can see is basically what we can see on the logical extraction.
But you ask for both of those extractions, essentially.
Correct.
And maybe let me rephrase another question. When you do it, you don't go on there and say, just give me text messages. Just give me you're saying extract all the data and give it to me.
The file system extraction doesn't give you that option. When you extract it, it says, give me everything that's on the phone. You can limit some of that on a logical extraction. In this case, we weren't asked to limit any information we obtained, so we would obtain all of it.
Okay. And did you in fact extract and you were able to extract data from Amanda Colley's cell phone?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Okay. That included text messages, call logs, voicemails, photos, everything like that?
Correct.
Did you later conduct an examination on James Colley's cell phone?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. Do you remember the date in which you conducted that examination?
I have to look at my report, but I believe it was March 21st.
Go ahead. Look if you need to.
Yes, ma'am, March 21st, 2017.
And did that item have an item of evidence in it?
correct?
Yes, ma'am, it's item number 25.
And when you say item number 20...
I'm sorry, I made a mistake. It was actually 2018 I did the extraction. I had a typo in my report.
Okay. And item number 25 would have been the evidence item. Your agency would have assigned that phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach?
You bet.
This item of evidence has been entered, approaching with states 21. Take a look at that item of evidence. Let me know if you recognize it.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And what do you recognize it to be?
Item number 25, which would have been turned in as a cell phone belonging to James Colley.
And there's evidence on the seals there that you had opened that item and examined it at one point.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
When you do the extractions of both phones, is it some of the information provided tell you the phone numbers associated with those phones?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
I'm going to move to this first slide. For the record, could you tell the jury the cell phone number associated with Amanda Colley's phone?
Yes, ma'am, it's 904-612-3603.
And James Colley's cell phone?
Yes, ma'am, it's 904-315-1096.
To this next slide here, if you would just explain to the jury, if you need to get down to see closer, but if you can see there, that's fine. What is this screen? What are we looking at here?
That's a summary of what we get when we perform an extraction. It tells us the date and time it started, what software was used, version number, what kind of phone it is, what cable we used to connect it, all that pertinent information.
Okay. And I see down at the bottom, it's got your information and an evidence number as well, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And what about this screen?
That is the device info screen. It populates certain information that we recover from the phone. It's all an automated process. It'll have the Apple ID on this case. It's because of an Apple phone. It usually has the email address that's associated with the Apple ID, a phone number, what model phone it is, when the last time it synced with the computer if it did, which in this case it did, as well as other information. Sometimes, like you see out as version 8.4.1 and product 7.1, well, that's obviously not an iPhone 6. That's how Apple encodes certain artifacts inside of there.
Okay. So just basically information about the phone is contained in these initial screens?
Correct.
Okay. Did you were you able to extract a call log from Amanda Colley's phone? Specifically, we're going to focus on the date of August 27th, 2015.
Yes, ma'am, always.
Okay. And that call log is included in the data reports in the exhibit there for you if you need to refer to it.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to talk about the calls and ask you some questions about specifically the calls from James Colley's phone to Amanda Colley's phone, okay?
Okay.
And I want to ask you, and let me go ahead and ask this. So, on Amanda Colley's call log report that you have there, there is dates and times associated with the log, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Can you explain to the jurors UTC 5 that's indicated there and what you have to do when you see that?
Well, years ago, a couple years ago, Celebrite did not have the functionality to automatically figure out when daylight savings time went into effect. So it bases off the time when the phone actually is, which is typically UTC -5, because that's the world we live in. In this case, it would have been UTC -5 for the normal part of the year. Then when daylight savings time, it's UTC -4. It does not automatically do that for you where it actually does now. It figures out what day it changes every year and it says, okay, now they're in UTC -4.
So it reported out in UTC 5 back in 2015.
Correct, across
So
the board.
when you look at the records for August 27th, you have to do a little bit of a conversion back to UTC -4, is that correct?
That's correct.
What time do the calls start between Amanda Colley and James Colley on that date?
August 27th. May have to go to the end, I think it's in
It is
reverse order.
backwards.
Okay.
So the first call is recorded here, it says 8/27/2015, 3:52 a.m. UTC -4, which would be actually 4:52 a.m.
It's UTC 5, so you did a
Correct.
conversion and it's 4:52 a.m. Is that
Correct.
Okay. When you review the call log from 8/27 between James Colley and Amanda Colley, how many total calls came from James Colley? If you need to.
Let's say 22.
Okay.
Double check my math here real quick.
And keep in mind, Detective, you have your presentation also in front of you if you need to utilize that. Next, I want to ask you how many of the 22 calls on 8/27 were not answered. So if you want to refer to your presentation for that information as well, you can do that.
Uh, 19 of them.
Okay. And therefore, doing a little bit of math, how many calls were actually answered or connected calls between Amanda and James?
From him or from?
You can explain both.
Okay. There was 3 calls that were answered that came from him and 1 she placed to him.
Okay. And I want to go through the calls that were actually answered. If you could take us through chronologically in order, the calls that were actually answered, tell us whether they're incoming, the time, and the duration of the call, if you could.
Sure. The first answered call was an incoming call at 4:53 a.m. It lasted 5 minutes and 18 seconds. The next call was an incoming call at 4:59 a.m. was 10 minutes and 51 seconds. Then an outgoing call from Amanda to James at 8:54 a.m. for 6 minutes and 28 seconds. And another incoming call to her phone from him at 9:41 a.m. It was 13 minutes and 51 seconds.
And Detective, when you downloaded Amanda Colley's phone, were you also able to retrieve voicemails that came from James Colley's phone to Amanda Colley's phone?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And for the record, could you tell us the times of 4 of those voicemails that we're going to be discussing here today?
8:34 a.m., 9:35 a.m., 9:37 a.m., and 10:07 a.m.
Okay. All right, this time I'm going to publish the voicemails.
Okay, go ahead.
Really funny, you don't want to talk yet, huh? You know what, we don't need to talk. Don't do nothing to me, I won't do nothing to you. I won't bring this up in court about this, you really are. And we both know what you really are. You're lucky I don't tell our children about this, Amanda. You're fucking disgusting. That's what you are.
The next voicemail at 9:35, for the record, I will publish.
Please talk to me, please.
The next voicemail at 9:37, for the record, I am publishing.
Amanda, I'm on record. Please talk to me. Maybe please, this is the last time I'm calling today. Please.
And for the record, publishing voicemail left at 10:07 a.m. Detective, I want to move on to some other forensic data as it relates to Amanda's from kind of a timeline, looking not just between her and James, but looking at the timeline on her phone that morning. Did she place a call to contact in her phone identified as Lindy?
Yes, ma'am, at 9:07 a.m. Amanda calls Lindy for 4 minutes and 16 seconds.
And in addition to what we've kind of been talking about so far, calls, voicemails, is there information in the phone, and did you locate specifically in this phone, any information related to wireless network connectivity? Can you get that information from us?
Yes, ma'am, you can. It's commonly referred to as SSIDs, which is what's broadcast out from wireless networks. BSSID is a baseband version of that, if I remember correctly. It's just an address that's unique to that wireless network.
Okay. And just so I make sure we're on the same page here, wireless network, you mean like a router? It's a phone connecting to a wireless router at a particular location?
Sometimes referred to as a wireless access point, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that sometimes may log in a phone's system?
Correct. It's communicating with that network, which is why that number comes up.
Okay. And did you show a connectivity to a wireless network that morning from Amanda's phone?
Yes, ma'am, I did. At 9:14, her phone connected with BSSID 00:14:BF:71:7F:80.
Okay. Also during that time, I want to ask you if you saw outbound calls by Amanda between the 9:15 and 9:30 hours.
Yes, ma'am, there were 4 calls, I believe.
Okay. And when preparing this report, the calls, let me ask you this. When you are seeing the information in the phone, you see both the phone number and the contact that the person has put that person in their phone as, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so what are some of the contacts of the persons that she was calling during that morning hours?
Lacey Dubs, Mom, Nick Monet, and Tommy Robertson.
Okay. And those were between what times?
9:14 and 9:28.
And then do you see a 911 call that appeared in the extraction of Amanda Colley's cell phone?
Yes, ma'am, at 10:36 there was a 911 call.
Detective, I want to move on to James Colley's phone. And sort of similar to some of the screens we had before with Amanda's phone, can you kind of tell us what this screen depicts?
It's somewhat similar to the other screen, several revisions later of Celebrate software. It shows the extraction information on one side and the device info basically on the other side of the screen. It shows an MSISDN number, which is typically the phone number. Also shows dates and times of extraction, what version of phone, what cable was used, very similar to the other one.
Okay. When you utilized tools with James Colley's phone, this was several years later, as you indicated before, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So did you utilize multiple tools on this phone?
Yes, ma'am. For verification purposes, validation purposes, we now have multiple tools. It's not as cheap what we do, so we have multiple tools to run things in.
Okay. When you are now looking at James Colley's phone, did you have an occasion to check the contact number in James's phone for Amanda's cell phone number?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And what tool do we have that we're going to use to display for the jury today?
The tool is called Lantern Forensics.
Okay. And when you looked at her phone number in his phone, do you know what she was entered as?
Bitch.
And is this screenshot sort of a snapshot of what you see when you look at that forensics report?
That would be correct. The only difference would be is if people had pictures assigned with it, their photos would pop up. There was no photos assigned with these people. That's why it's just a silhouette.
Okay. And what tool was that you used for this?
That was Lantern Forensics.
So the red circle there was the contact. And then if you click on that, does that give you more information on who the bitch would be?
Yes, ma'am. If you click on it, it will retrieve data showing when contact was created, modified, so on and so forth.
And if you can read it there or on your presentation, can you tell us when that contact was last created and modified?
It would have been August 10th of 2015 at 17:52, which would be 5:02 p.m.
With Mr. Colley's phone, I want to start a little bit prior to the date of the homicide. I asked you to look at information on the phone on August 24th, 2015. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you explain to the jury what we are displaying here on the screen for them, what data you located?
I recovered a text message from somebody in his address book, referred to as ICE. I think it's also referred to as Rhonda Colley in the phone. She sent apparently a text message to him from Mike, and then a set of images of a man cutting grass.
And for the record, if you could, the time that ICE, also identified as Rhonda Colley, sent the image of the man cutting grass, what was that time?
She sent that to his phone at 2:44. It appears she received it at 2:43.
And is this the phone, the photo that was associated with that when you looked at the data?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
And then if we move on in that date of 8/24, I want to ask you if you saw, just shortly after that time period, text messages from James Colley's phone to Amanda Colley's phone, just shortly after that, reference this photo.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, when did the first one?
2:44.
In seconds?
38 seconds.
So if we go back 20 some odd seconds after she received it, correct?
Correct.
And for the record, this is a text message from James Colley's phone to the contact bitch, which is you've identified as Amanda Colley, correct?
Correct.
And what, for the record, can you read the text message that you sent?
So why doesn't he probe in the driveway if he isn't hiding?
And can you tell us the next time and content of that text message?
It was at 2:45, 52 p.m., and it was a text message to bitch again. I have a pic of him.
Okay. And if you continue to read the dialogue on 8/24, there was more of a dialogue after this, correct?
That's correct.
A lot of back and forth about that photo. And what was the context of the back and forth?
Pretty much if she would have an affair.
I want to move on to 8/27, so the day of the homicide, and kind of go back into Mr. Colley's timeline of actions through his phone. On 8/27, can we start around 1:02 a.m.? What are you seeing in the phone at that time?
He placed a phone call to somebody he had identified in his phone as race car Dave. It did not go through, apparently. There was no time associated with it.
Okay. And is that type of data found in the phones, whether it's a connected call or not, and the duration?
It would be, there's different varies. It's missed, sent, received, or incoming, outgoing in phone calls. It would capture the he dialed number, but it doesn't capture, it showed with the 0 time, it showed that the call was not completed.
And in your experience of reviewing these call logs and phones, sometimes a call may be missed, but there's a short duration in seconds. Are you familiar with seeing that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. But the phone gives you both of that information, missed or?
It missed, incoming, outgoing, and as well as sometimes it depends on the phone, it'll say different things, but those are typically the 3 you see.
Okay. So an incoming would indicate to you what? It was an answered
Somebody
incoming.
called that phone.
And it was,
Outgoing would reference that that phone made the phone call, and then missed would obviously be that you missed an incoming phone call.
okay. The next activity on the phone on 8/27, can you tell us the time and what that activity was?
That was at 3:47 in the morning, 3:47 a.m. There was a picture taken with the cell phone.
And I want to direct you to the data report there that you have as part of James Colley's phone. If you go to that place, there's a data report, reference photographs.
Yes, ma'am.
And my question to you is, were there multiple photographs of a similar image that we're about to publish?
Yes, ma'am, there were.
And what were the date and times all similar associated with those images?
Yes, ma'am, they were all within a few seconds of each other. 3:47 a.m., 46 seconds, 47 seconds, 51 seconds, 3:48, 03 seconds, and 06 seconds.
And this photograph, this is one of the photographs you retrieved and extracted from his phone that we're talking about here, taken around 3:47 a.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Moving on to, do you see activity on the phone at 4:41 a.m.?
Yes, ma'am, there's a phone call placed to Mike and Gail for 23 seconds at 4:41 a.m.
And what about activity at 4:46 a.m.?
4:46, he placed a phone call to Dobu or DB.
Can you just spell it for the record?
Yeah, DBO, right, but did not go through.
Moving on to 4:52 a.m.
Placed a phone call to Bitch, this is again 0 minutes and 0 seconds.
Okay. And we're going to walk through this timeline now moving forward. Through the timeline, are you able to see exactly, text messages mixed in with calls and other activity as it happens?
Correct, in the timeline you would.
Okay. And the timeline report for 8/27 from his phone, what's the next activity at 4:53?
4:53, he sends a text message, Avery is really sick, call me.
And what's the next activity?
4:53 again, he phone called a Bitch that lasted 5 minutes and 19 seconds.
Okay. And that was one of those phone calls we referenced earlier on Amanda's phone that was answered, is that right?
Correct.
And what's the next activity?
Another phone call to Bitch at 4:59 for 10 minutes and 52 seconds.
And what's the next activity?
He receives a couple phone calls, incoming text from Mike and Gail at 5:11 that he never responds to.
And you said both phone calls and text, but do you know which one it is?
Those were texts there.
Okay. And then what happens next?
5:26 a.m., he puts a phone call to Bitch for 0 minutes, which means she didn't answer.
Now, after that, there's a time period, tell the jurors what is going on between 5:26 a.m. and 5:53 a.m.
There's a series of text messages to Bitch. You should have just told me the truth.
Hold on a second.
I'm sorry.
There's a series of text messages over that time period. Are they all outgoing text messages from James Colley to Amanda Colley?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And did she respond to any of those text messages?
No, ma'am, she did not.
Okay. And one by one, I'm going to ask you to read those into the record, if you could.
Sure. You should have just told me the truth, that this is what you wanted. The next one is, I would have left you alone. And another message, and I have you a chance to walk away right now. Whips and gag balls. Really, I'm glad that this was what's get you off. You should have just told me. I could have moved on. I guess all the crying yourself to sleep, or whatever that word is, so shit was a liar. Take our photos down of your Facebook and our house, please. give me the furniture and let me move on. I'll buy a TV tomorrow and he can pick it up, and we will never speak again. And I won't tell anyone about this. This is just as bad for you as me. At this point, he is welcome in my house. Now she is there anyway. 8 years and 2 kids.
And again, for the record, what was the time frame of this text message?
That was between 5:26 and 5:53 a.m.
And so what happens after that at 5:56 a.m.?
He places a phone call to bitch again with no answer, 0 minute duration.
And next in the timeline?
Text message to bitch at 5:56, please call me.
Next in the timeline?
3 phone calls to bitch, 3 seconds, 4 seconds in duration, not answered by Amanda. Drop her phone.
And next.
Text message to bitch, please.
And next at 5:58 a.m.?
Text message to bitch, I don't want to fight.
And next to bitch?
Phone call to bitch at 5:59 for 4 seconds, not answered per her phone.
Okay. Next?
5:59, text message to bitch, just 1 minute is all I need.
And next?
6 a.m., phone call to bitch, shows 4 second duration, but it's not answered per her phone.
And again at 6 o'clock?
Text message to bitch, you're an awesome person.
And at 6:01?
Text message to bitch, don't take me from my kids, it's all I have.
And at between 6:02 and 6:18 a.m., what do you see in the timeline?
4 more phone calls placed to Amanda, bitch. Seconds, there was no seconds because they were not answered by her phone.
Now we move on to approximately 6:45 a.m. in the timeline between 6:45 and 6:54 a.m. What is seen in his timeline?
Some text messages from Mason.
And what are those?
Good morning, baby. Wake up, baby. You up, baby.
And at 6:55 a.m.?
Phone call to 904-824-8304 for 0 minutes, 0 seconds.
6:57 a.m.?
Text message to Mason, yep, up. Or sorry, up, yep, sorry.
It's okay. And between 7 a.m. and 7:10 a.m., what was observed on his timeline?
There were text messages between what I believe to be various family members.
7:12 a.m. what occurs?
Phone call to Amanda Colley for 0 minutes and 0 seconds. It's apparently her work phone, that's why I came up with a different name.
And moving on to approximately between 7:25 and 8:30, it's about an hour time frame. What is going on in that time frame based on looking at his phone?
Various text and phone calls from friends and family.
Okay. Not nothing with Amanda during Amanda or the bitch contact during that time frame?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And what do we see at 8:34 a.m.?
Phone call at 8:34, phone call to bitch for 47 seconds and left a voicemail on her phone.
Okay, so that was one of the voicemails we verified, cross-referenced with her phone, what we just previously listened to.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Between 8:38 and 8:49, what was on his timeline?
5 more phone calls to bitch that were not answered per her phone.
And at 8:51,
Text message to bitch, call Mr. Or I'm going to come find you.
and at 8:54 a.m.,
Phone call to bitch, a minute and 17-second duration, and it was not answered by her.
and 8:58 a.m.,
Another phone call to bitch, this was 6 minutes and 4 seconds in duration.
we look, this one appears to be from her, is that correct?
I'm sorry, yes, it's from her.
Okay. And that was cross-referenced back with her phone and the one call she made out to him that morning.
That's correct.
What happens next in his timeline between 9:04 and 9:06 a.m.?
4 phone calls to bitch. They were not answered by her.
And 9:31, there's a break in time, it looks like, between 9:06 and 9:31. What occurs?
5 phone calls to bitch, 4 unanswered. 1 answered at 9:41 a.m. for 13 minutes and 51 seconds.
And that was the one we previously cross-referenced from her phone as well.
That's correct.
10:03 a.m., what do you see in the phone?
Text message to bitch, please.
10:05,
Phone call to bitch, 1 minute and 36 seconds in duration. There was a voicemail left on her phone.
and at 10:22 a.m.
Another phone call to bitch for 3 seconds. It was not answered on her phone.
10:23 a.m.
Text message to Mason, I love I, apparently may have been a misspelling, I meant you.
And 10:24 a.m. What do you see?
A text message from Mason, you don't record everything okay.
And what do you see at 10:26 a.m.?
Phone call from dad that didn't go through or didn't get answered by the dad.
10:28 a.m.
Phone call from dad for 55 seconds, which would mean he answered the phone.
10:31 a.m.
Phone call from dad for 19 seconds.
And then after approximately around the time of the 911 call, that would have been in Amanda's phone at 10:36. What do you see on his phone at 10:37?
The same BSSID number that her phone connected with at 9:14 a.m.
Okay, so now his cell phone is connected to that same wireless network.
Correct.
And at 10:39 a.m.
Phone call to dad for 2 minutes, 1 second.
Essentially, I want to walk back just so we're clear on some of the timing here, because it's important. So the last activity as far as a text or a call prior to those 911 calls is 10:31, is that correct?
That's correct. The only other activity would be when it connected with the network.
And it connects with the network at 10:37. And then, so from 10:31, the next active by a text or a call, something like that, that the user would make on the phone is at 10:39, is that?
That's correct.
And at 10:41 a.m., what do you see?
Placed a phone call to Crystal Ram for 59 seconds in duration. Oh, right, Crystal, I'm sorry.
It's okay. 10:42 a.m.
Phone call to dad for 2 minutes and 51 seconds.
And at between 10:45 and 10:48 a.m., what do you see?
Phone calls to ICE. The phone call at 10:48 was 13 minutes and 23 seconds in duration.
Okay, this was the ICE we previously mentioned as Rhonda Colley also listed in front.
Correct.
And was that from or to?
That was from ICE. Yeah.
After 10:48 a.m., is there any other outgoing activity in the respect of calls or text messages from James Colley?
No, ma'am.
Obviously, in the phone, there was a lot of incoming activity at that point, but no outgoing activity. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's correct.
No further questions?
You ready for cross-examination?
Yes, sir. Detective Cosby, as far as the 6-minute phone call and the 13-minute phone call with Amanda, there's no recordings of those, are there?
No, sir, there's not.
Okay. Also, on Amanda's phone, you stated that there were some numbers and contacts. One was Lacey Doves,
That's correct.
and that was actually corresponded with Omar Dauberly's phone number, is that correct?
I would have to look at his phone extraction to see his phone number, but I would probably.
And as far as Ms. Dumpton was asking you about, I don't have which frame it was, but it was the text message when, right after the sex toys and the men's clothing. He said, why doesn't he crow in the driveway if he isn't hiding? He then says, I have a pic of him. And then he said that there were back and forth text messages about the photo and whether or not Amanda was having an affair, right?
That's correct.
And during those back and forth messages, she kept denying that affair, did she not?
I believe so, yes, sir.
1 second. I don't have anything else.
Any redirect examination?
We're not. Nothing further.
Is detective causing excused?
He's gonna remain.
So you're subject to recall. All right, folks, we'll go ahead and take our lunch at this point rather than starting with this juncture. And it's at 11:45, so I should be back at 9 o'clock. And again, during the break, please do not discuss this case with anybody. Don't do any research of any type. Don't become any media accounts of the case. Keep your notes here in the courtroom in the envelopes. They will be secured. So at 1 o'clock, be back in the second floor jury lounge, and we'll get everybody up here as soon as we're ready. Thank you, folks. Enjoy your lunch.